So then you got involved with the United Nations. How did that happen?
Just by chance, I went to it was the Year of the Woman, and a New York group wanted to send a delegation to a World Conference of Women held in East Berlin. They wanted a representative group, and I qualified as a working mother and as an actor and as an African American. So I was part of the 100 women that went. And I remember that all you had to do was pay $100, and I didn't have $100 for something. And I wrote 4 women, Ann Keel, Theodore Keel's wife was one. And who were the other 3 white women? They gave me the money. So I was able to go.
Tell us about getting there.
Well, getting there for the first time, finding those, Anne was one and 3 other women. See how soon you forget? I don't know who the other 3 were. I needed $100. I told my dad I don't know when I'd be able to pay it back. But I remember I could pay it back now, but I don't remember who the other 3 were. They're probably dead. Anne Keeler's dead.
You made them happy so they could give it to you.
Yes.
But this was based on testimonies of children, right? A child was born, plus James Baldwin and Sean O'Casey. You put that together.
Mm-hmm. I still use the Sean O'Casey, A Child is Born, because it's a very powerful piece, and it is Sean O'Casey. And how is it that Sean O'Casey heard me? And do I still have a note that he wrote me? Or something. But
Then you went and did Africa Fire. This is like 1986 to 1991. You toured schools with this African folklore collage.
Yeah. I did it first at Dartmouth, and I remember I may have a picture on a giant something as you entered the school, Vinie Burrows in Africa Fire. But that's still very popular. I can resurrect that at any time and get an audience.
Mm-hmm. And you did her talking drum at the American Place Theater in 1987. What was that? Tell me about that.
Same thing. It's really
the same.
Africa Fire.
And then you did Sister Sister in 1992 at the Vineyard.
Yes.
And after that, tell me about that, because that's a reworking of something else, or was that its own piece?
That's really Sister Sister.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Oh, but I also did the Rose McClendon.
I had that coming next.
Yeah.
So Sister Sister took you to Japan on tour, is that correct?
Yes.
And did you go to, I mean, you've done a lot of audiences.
What I remember most vividly is being in Sapporo and a young woman coming to me and saying, "You came on stage," and I said, "What do I have with this woman, this black woman with braids in her hair?" And then when it was over, I knew we were sisters. Isn't that something?
Yeah. You worked with a lot of audiences who may or may not have spoken English, right? And you never had a problem with that.
When I went to the Netherlands, they had my text, because instead of bringing over an English company so that they could learn English, they brought me over with my English version of the African American experience. So that was, I learned so much about their colonial past, Suriname, for example. Oh, yes. They were so, as young people, so into the recognition of oppression and discrimination and their role in helping to change it and helping to change it by knowing about it. Oh, they were wonderful. They were wonderful.
Letters from Langston, 2016 at City College, and Woody King directed that.
Yeah, well, that's again Mary Louise Patterson, whose father, William L. Patterson, along with Paul Robeson, wrote We Charge Genocide, which they sent to the United Nations as a list of the human rights violations against the black population in the United States. And Mary Louise Patterson and a friend of hers who was related, not related, but just friends, parents had letters to Langston, and the two women compiled the letters. And it's a very interesting compilation showing the involvement of their parents in so many of the issues of the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s. Very interesting. She's just coming back from Japan. She's introducing those audiences to those letters because they touch on so much of the history of the United States and black involvement in human rights. So it's doing very well.
It seems since you've been to Japan as well, there's a hungry audience there for this information. Am I right about that?
Yes, yes. I remember when I first, John Henry Clark, when I told him I was going, he was a self-educated really in terms of black history. Extraordinary. And I told him I was going to Japan, and he immediately knew connections between East Africa and Japan, and he was telling me about it. The excitement of people who educate themselves is just so. I think you must be a scholar. Are you that kind of scholar? No?
No.
Bobby, but when I came to Belfast, he had just died, Bobby Sand,
Yeah.
and my neighbor, and you couldn't talk about it in a car. Yeah.
That's good.
Oh, I remember thinking I was in Harlem when I went to Belfast, when I saw the English soldiers with drawn guns and her teenage son. You don't see teenagers playing in the streets. I think her son, Linda, had been hit by a, what do they call them, a dummy bullet? Dummy bullet? Does
It's a
that
rubber
strike?
bullet, you mean?
Rubber bullet.
Yeah.
Doesn't kill you, but it can do a lot of damage.
It stings. Yeah.
How long were you there?
About 2 weeks. I was there, and then the third time I went back must have been 2014 or 2015. And I wanted to do what I really should do, because the Irish were very involved in the abolitionist movement over there in England. And there were 2 English women. I said, well, there's a story there. And when I went, the last time I went, I compared myself to Ida Wells Barnett and Frederick Douglass, who had both gotten support from the Irish for the anti-slavery and the abolitionist movement here. And that's a real story that needs to be told, you know. There are lots of stories to be told.
What play were you doing in Ireland? when
I
you were
did
there?
Sister Sister.
Mm.
And I also did snatches of Africa Fire. But no, Sister Sister mainly. Oh, yes. Yes. I spoke at the Irish Parliament. You know, oh my God, what did I say? I must have the speech somewhere. Yes.
Then you did Homecoming Queen at the Atlantic Theater Company, right?
Yes. Oh, well, I had just a tiny part.
Okay.
Oh, really, a tiny part. It was a wonderful play. Wonderful, yes, Nigerian writer. Oh, Igbo, not Yoruba. And very conscious of the Igbo tradition. And it gives us another understanding of the tribalism of our human race.
Mm-hmm.
We're just human, you know. And it can be very, very powerful. And also can enrich, but not by separating us, by helping us to understand how humanity can in different ways. But we're all the same, you know, same love, same hate, same jealousy, same envy, same competition, but human. Igbo, Yoruba, North Ireland, Republic of Ireland, black, white, whatever.
Tell me how you got involved in the United Nations and
Oh,
what
that
your
was
work
interesting.
was.
I was part of the 100 women that went to Berlin, and afterwards, there I discovered, you know, that there was not only talk about racism but sexism. It was talk about sexism and then racism, and then I heard that and became involved in the anti-apartheid movement because of someone called Gertrude Schope, S-H-O-P-E. I remember, why was I on a line with people were asking, what did you do? And they came to, she said, I'm a freedom fighter. She's from South Africa. And so the group there, particularly the American delegation, when we came back, we formed an organization called Women for Racial and Economic Equality. And that group became affiliated with the convening group of the East Berlin Conference. And because they were an NGO with consultative status, they said, we can have representation at the UN. Whom can you appoint, or who can? Well, I was the only one who was an actor, which meant I didn't have a job. So by default, I became the representative, because I didn't have a 9-to-5 job. And that was an extraordinary just extraordinary eye-opener.
Where did it take you?
Well, it took me to the UN meetings and understanding after a while that when certain issues came up, the United States and France and the UK all spoke with one voice. It was very interesting, very interesting. So that began my interest in foreign affairs and my understanding of the role that the United States plays internationally. with all issues. And going to the UN, you see who you see who the players are. Whether it was apartheid in South Africa, whether it was the Palestinian-Israeli question, you see who speaks to the issues. And no one else, everybody else withdraws, but the chief players, you learn very quickly who they are. And that was revelatory.
And then you went yourself to different countries. What did you go looking for? What did you go representing?
When I went to Amsterdam, to the Netherlands, it was with Sister Sister. I was then also sent as my representative to Copenhagen with the question of women, and learn through our various affiliates what the WIDF position was.
Explain what that is,
Women's
WDIF.
International Democratic Federation. But it was also, I remember being very surprised at the fact that both the Eastern countries, women, and the Western countries were against the involvement of NATO. Both of them were.
On what grounds? Why?
Because they actually, since the credo was women who stand for equality and development and peace have got to be united against all entanglements that divided. And I thought it was very interesting that both the East and the West felt that NATO was essentially an instrument that was going to be, it was an instrument that was in the control of the powers that be in the USA, France, and UK.
Blocking the ability for people to come together as a group. When you've had dark times in your life, what gets you out of them?
Well, first I didn't recognize that they were dark. So I just went on, which is how I need to look at this current situation. You just go on. I don't live in a tent. I live in a house. I have food to eat. I have clothes to wear. There are most people in the world with much less than I have, much less. There are most people in the United States with much less than I have. So, let's look at the darkness. Whatever darkness I have, I am not homeless. I'm not hungry.